This is the download from Sounds Profitable, your daily source for the essential news of the business of podcasting. Brought to you by Spreaker from iHeart. I'm Tom Webster. Here's what you need to know for today, Thursday, December 7th. First, from Rephonic, what are the fastest growing podcast languages? While English language podcasts have made up the bulk of shows, podcasting's global rise has caused a steady increase of shows produced in other languages. Using end-of-year data from their podcast database, Rephonic has calculated the growth of various languages in podcasting since 2019. Indonesian has been the fastest growing podcast language over the past 5 years, possibly motivated by widespread smartphone adoption and a boom in startups. Vietnamese language podcasts continue to be on track for sustained and rapid growth, as the local podcast population has increased from a few hundred to over 6,000 in 4 years. Ukrainian is the fastest growing language in 2023, and Rephonic speculates that this might be motivated by the Russian invasion, causing a cultural shift away from speaking Russian, which causes more regular adoption and usage of Ukrainian. In Digiday, we have to test or you're dead next year. That was overheard at the Digiday Programmatic Marketing Summit. Those dire words. This week, the Digiday Programmatic Marketing Summit took place in New Orleans. A recurring topic throughout the event was that of what to do with an impending deadline, Google's removal of third-party cookies by the end of 2024. Among other concerns, anonymous attendees told Digiday that they're finding client hesitancy for new formats to be an issue. Some bump into the issue of a previous agency having tried a new format, but they botched the experiment and the client has had no further interest. And others say the biggest challenge is the creative costs involved, costs that could easily be kept in check when experimenting with podcasting, hint, hint. In Slate, podcasts aren't as doomed as they look, but some of the best ones are. In light of the latest layoffs at Spotify, Slate gives a bird's-eye view of the company's podcast acquisition strategy over the past year, as well as contextualizing headlines throughout the year discussing the podcast bubble and the end of, quote, dumb money, unquote, in podcasting. Podcasting as a medium is growing, with listenership and ad revenue continuing to climb. What seems to be happening, though, is a potential over-reliance on flagship prestige podcasts and unrealistic expectations for said podcasts to produce revenue. The downside to all of this is the decline of expensive-to-produce podcasts that need the finances of big-name companies. Even people with household names like Reply All's Alex Goldman report that they're having trouble finding funding for new podcast projects. From Marketing Brew, only around a third of ad dollars reach their intended audience, the ANA finds. The Association of National Advertisers has released the second part of their Programmatic Supply Chain Transparency Report. And as the article headline says, it's found some discrepancies. According to their audit of an estimated $88 billion in open web programmatic advertising spend, the ANA found only 36% of ad spend on demand-side platforms actually reached the intended audiences set by the advertiser. 35% of every dollar spent went to non-viewable, non-measurable, made-for-advertising inventory, or bot traffic. The report suggests media buyers prioritize inclusion lists over exclusion lists and have direct contacts along every step of their ad tech supply chain. And in the rest of the news, Tidal announces a layoff of 10% of its staff, and more Digiday coverage of the Programmatic Marketing Summit, in which a panelist breaks down integrating programmatic tracking into the creator economy. Be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned right in your podcast listening app or at soundsprofitable.com, where you can also subscribe to the newsletter version. The download is written and produced by Brian Barletta, Gavin Gaddis, and me. This episode is hosted on Art19. For Sounds Profitable, I'm Tom Webster. Download us again tomorrow.